Falcons Nation, are we about to witness a masterclass in strategic acquisition, or are we once again falling victim to the annual trade deadline circus, chasing ghosts when we should be seizing destiny? Every single year, like clockwork, the NFL trade deadline approaches, and with it, the familiar hum of speculation, the tantalizing whispers of player movement. And every single year, Adam Schefter drops his pre-deadline trade candidates list, a compilation of insights from executives, coaches, and scouts, detailing who they believe could be on the move. But this year, for our beloved Dirty Birds, the stakes feel different, the possibilities more profound. After a dominating victory on Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills, a performance that screamed contender, the question isn't whether the Falcons should be active, but whether they'll be buyers or sellers. And frankly, if you're not in the camp of buying, you haven't been watching this team evolve. We're not just talking about adding another piece, we're talking about a pivotal moment that could define our season, a chance to solidify our roster, and make a legitimate push. So, let me ask you directly, should the Dirty Birds make a trade in 2025? Because what we saw just last night might be the clearest indication, yet that Terry Fontenot and the front office are already gearing up to do exactly that. Let's rewind to about 20 minutes before kickoff against the Bills. The news dropped. Ray-Ray McCloud was inactive. A healthy scratch. No injury designation. No lingering ailment. Just a straight-up he's not dressing tonight. And I remember thinking, and even telling producer Reed at the time, this is incredibly odd. We're already without Darnell Mooney, leaving Drake London as our one certified wide receiver, backed by a hodgepodge of other pass catchers like Kyle Pitts and Casey Washington. In a situation where receiver depth is already being tested, why would you sideline a healthy player who could contribute? In my years of watching this game, and while I may only be 29, almost 30, I've been glued to football since I was 9 and closely analyzing it for basically my job for the last 9 years. What I've learned is this. When a team gives a healthy scratch to a player, especially when there are already injury concerns at that position, it almost always indicates they're preserving that player for a potential trade. You don't want to risk an injury to an asset you're looking to move. The Falcons, with their current injury situation, would be foolish to risk McCloud if he's on the trade block. This wasn't a coaching decision born of performance. It was a strategic maneuver, a silent signal that something is brewing. So, if a wide receiver trade is indeed on the horizon, what did Schefter's list offer in terms of potential targets? Well, I've got some bad news for you right off the bat. 3 of the names on that list are absolute non-starters, dead on arrival. Why? Because they play for the New Orleans Saints. Do you honestly believe Mickey Loomis, or as I like to call him, Mickey Boomies, is going to pick up the phone and call Terry Fontenot to discuss trade ideas? Not a chance in hell. That leaves us with 3 viable players from Schefter's list: Tyler Lockett, Allen Lazard, and Jakobi Meyers. Now, let's be brutally honest here. Allen Lazard? He's old, and frankly, he blows. Tyler Lockett? Also old, and also, regrettably, blows. So by process of elimination, that leaves us with one compelling name: Jakobi Meyers. He's not exactly a spring chicken at 29, almost 30, but he certainly doesn't blow. In fact, he's currently the clear number 1 option for the Las Vegas Raiders, an organization that, in my humble opinion, is a dumpster fire and looking to sell off assets. While I wouldn't classify Meyers as a true number 1 receiver in the NFL, he is an exceptionally good number 2. This season, his touchdown numbers have been quiet, but he's racked up 29 receptions over roughly 6 games, averaging a little over 4 catches per game for 329 yards. He's a good, reliable player. And here's where it gets truly exciting. Imagine a scenario where Darnell Mooney returns from injury and Jakobi Meyers slots in as your number 2, pushing Mooney to a dynamic number 3. Drake London, Jakobi Meyers, Darnell Mooney. Name me a trio better than that in the National Football League. I'll wait. It would be absolutely insane, period. So, let's break down the pros and cons of Jakobi Meyers as a player, because a trade isn't just about the acquisition, it's about what you're bringing into the locker room. Pros: true number 2 receiver. He's proven he can handle the workload and be a consistent threat. surefire hands. I spoke with Mitchell Renz, our Raiders host, and he emphasized that Meyers simply doesn't drop the ball. If it hits his hands, he catches it. He had 0 drops in 2024, and while I don't have the exact 2025 numbers, his reputation for reliability precedes him. NFL veteran. With a ton of experience, he could seamlessly integrate into any system and be immediately productive, offering a veteran presence in a relatively young receiving core. Cons. Age. At 29, he's not a long-term solution. You're likely only getting a couple more years of peak production before you start to see a decline. Contract demands. Rumors have floated around that he's looking for a deal in the neighborhood of $23 million per year. In my opinion, he's not worth that. His sweet spot is probably closer to $16 to $18 million annually, with $17 million being the ideal number. Falcons cap space issues. This is the biggest hurdle, and it's not even about Meyers himself. According to Over the Cap, the premier website for NFL salary cap information, which I highly encourage every football fan to check out to become smarter about the game, the Falcons are only projected to have $5 million in available cap space in 2026. This is just a projection, but it means a long-term deal for Meyers is likely out the window unless significant moves are made, like letting other players walk in free agency. This brings us to the crucial question. Would Jakobi Meyers be a rental? Would you be willing to bring him in for the remainder of the season, perhaps on a one-year, prove-it deal worth $18 million, knowing you'd have to clear up cap space by letting other Falcons players leave in free agency? It happens every year. But if you could clear enough room for one more significant, albeit short-term, contract, could you sign Meyers to pair with London and Mooney? Now, you might be wondering, why did you start with Ray-Ray McCloud in all of this? Because in my proposed trade package, I believe I've landed on the proper amount of compensation. I asked Mitchell Renz what the Raiders would want for Meyers, and he suggested a third-round pick. My response? Nope, too expensive. But how about this? A fourth-round pick and Ray-Ray McCloud. So, the Raiders get a very low-end number 3 receiver in McCloud and a fourth-round pick, and in return, the Falcons get Jakobi Meyers and a 2026 7th-round pick back. You get a much better wide receiver, and you recoup a draft pick, even if it's a late one. Why would the Raiders make this deal? It gets Jakobi Meyers off their books, freeing them from his contract demands. They acquire a 4th-round pick, which is valuable for a team in rebuild mode. And they get a player in Ray-Ray McCloud who primarily plays out of the slot, which is exactly where Jakobi Meyers has been their primary receiver. It's a win-win-win in my book for everyone involved. We get the receiver we so rightly deserve, and they get draft compensation and a albeit worse replacement. So I put it to you, Falcons Nation, would you make this trade offer? Yes or no? If you're Terry Fontenot, do you say yes, I accept, or nah, I'm going to explore elsewhere? All right, coming up next, and this should hopefully be the last time we talk about it for a while, but Schefter also listed Kirk Cousins as a trade target. In fact, he was the lone quarterback on this trade list. We need to talk about what I believe is happening with Kirk Cousins and why a trade is now further from reality than it ever has been. Before we dive into that, I have to tell you about my friends over at PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, you can actually get paid to be right. Do not miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it is good to be right. You can now follow other PrizePicks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in just one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner like producer Reed, or just someone whose picks you like, hit that follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on PrizePicks. How does it work? You just pick the player, you pick the more or the less, and then you watch your money multiply up to 2,000 times your money to be exact. Just download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It is good to be right. So, let's talk about Kirk Cousins. He was the only quarterback listed as a trade candidate. We all know that quarterback is the highest commodity position in the NFL. So, while he might be the only one listed, there are plenty of other quarterbacks who could get moved. Will Levis is a name that comes to mind. There are tons of solidified backups who could be on the move. Look at Kenny Pickett. He was moved before Kirk Cousins was. But Adam Schefter echoed a sentiment that I've held about the trade deadline, and it's another reason why a Kirk Cousins trade simply doesn't make sense. Teams that are winning want to bolster their rosters and their chances of making an extended playoff run. Teams that aren't winning are willing to begin looking ahead to next season and stockpiling draft picks to help replenish their roster. It's hard to imagine any NFL team making a significant move ahead of the deadline, but general managers are lighting up phone lines, digging into available players, and waiting to make their next move. A couple of things jump out from that statement. First, doesn't a Kirk Cousins trade sound like a pretty significant move? I think so. He's arguably the best backup in the league, and at this point in his career, he's a middle-tier bridge quarterback. He can absolutely start and win games for you, there's no doubt about that. And if there are some quarterback-needy teams out there, the Minnesota Vikings, for example, I just heard from our Vikings host today that Carson Wentz is now dealing with another injury, so J.J. McCarthy is injured and Carson Wentz is injured. It's just nonstop injuries over there in Minnesota. The Jets don't necessarily have an injury, but Justin Fields, well, he's struggling. The Las Vegas Raiders, Geno Smith has been the most turnover-prone quarterback, so they could be looking for a replacement. The Arizona Cardinals, who have Kyler Murray, could be looking to move off of him in the near future, given their recent woes. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have Aaron Rodgers, but he's most likely, in my opinion, retiring after the season. But are any of these practical trades right now? No, they're not. Not one of these makes sense for the 2025 season perspective. The Vikings still have J.J. McCarthy when he gets healthy. The Jets have Justin Fields under contract. The Las Vegas Raiders have Geno Smith under a contract they can't really get out of. The Cardinals have Kyler Murray's massive contract, and the Steelers are going to ride with Aaron Rodgers for now. So, none of this really makes sense for a 2025 season trade. Could the Steelers call up and say, "Hey, Aaron's thinking about retiring. We want a nice contingency plan. We'll give you X amount of dollars for Kirk Cousins"? Sure, it's possible. But at this point, I am totally fine with Kirk as my backup. I am tired of hearing about all the Kirk Cousins trade rumors. It's been something we've explored far too frequently on this channel, and to be completely honest, until we get a bigger news nugget, a more substantial rumor where someone says, "Hey, this is actually in the works," I don't want to explore it. Kirk's a backup. He's on a $27.5 million contract. There's not a general manager in the world right now who is willing to take that on as a full cap hit for Kirk Cousins. So if you're tired of the Kirk Cousins trade rumors, type your T's for tired in the comments. Or if you're still like, "Hey, I love hearing about it," then type your E for engaged. But if you're asking me as a fan, I'm typing my T's for tired because at this point Kirk's my backup and that's all there is to it. The Falcons are at a crossroads, with the potential to make a move that could genuinely elevate this team. The evidence points to a strategic play for a receiver like Jakobi Meyers, a move that makes sense, that strengthens our core, and that avoids the pitfalls of past indecision. Let's focus on the smart, impactful decisions that propel us forward, not the endless, often baseless speculation that only serves to distract. Remember to subscribe to the Falcons Today channel. We're pushing to grow to 43,000 subscribers, and we've already seen over 900 new subs in the last 24 hours, which is absolutely sensational. So, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button on today's video, and let's keep this conversation going in the comments below. Your passion fuels this community, and your insights are invaluable. Let's talk football.